was just a young teen, caught up in the thrills of adolescence, my parents had this sweet little tradition. Every weekend, they'd let me stay up way past my bedtime, just lounging on the couch and binge-watching my favorite TV shows until my eyes gave in to sleep. Man, I lived for those moments, squeezing every bit of freedom out of them, staying up even when the rest of the house was wrapped in silence and darkness. But one chilly, eerie night, something bizarre happened. I was on the brink of sleep when this weird, creaky sound snapped me right back to reality. Creak, creak, went our old, rickety porch swing, swaying in the wind like a scene straight out of a horror movie. My heart raced. Summoning every ounce of courage in my little teenage body, I tiptoed to our living room's huge bay windows and cautiously peeked out. And what I saw, holy macaroni, it was straight up nightmare fuel. An old woman, probably in her 50s, was just chilling on our porch swing. She wore a simple nightgown, but here's the kicker. She was drenched in blood. In her hand, a big, scary kitchen knife. Panic surged through me. I sprinted to my parents' room, screaming, but my terror rendered me speechless to form words. My parents, alarmed by my state, tried to calm me down. When I finally managed to explain, my dad's initial reaction was disbelief. My dad didn't buy it. He insisted I was just having a nightmare. "Go back to bed," he said. I refused and kept crying and screaming until he had had enough. So, with a sigh and an eye roll, he grabbed my arm and dragged me towards the front door to prove to me that there was nothing outside. I was kicking and screaming, trying to make him stop, but he kept pulling me. Finally, we got to the door. He unlocked it, swung it open, and said, "See, there's nothing there." And that's when he saw her. The blood, the knife, all of it. To this day, I have never seen the mix of fear and shock that was on his face when that woman turned and stared at both of us and slowly stood up with the knife gleaming in her hand. In a swift motion, my dad slammed the door shut and yelled for my mom to call the police while he went fumbling for his shotgun. Armed with a 12-gauge shotgun, he took a deep breath, and with a steady hand, he cracked the door open just enough to point the barrel out. He asked her what she was doing on our porch. Her answer sent shivers down my spine. Somebody killed my husband, but it wasn't me. Just like that, no emotion, just cold and flat. My dad told her the cops were on their way, and she just snapped. She grabbed that knife and ran away. The cops actually found her 15 minutes later, trying to break into one of our neighbors' houses. I later learned that my dad had called my uncle, who lived a few blocks away, to warn him. Apparently, he was waiting on his front porch with his shotgun when the woman walked by. He pointed it at her and just said, "Keep moving." In the aftermath, we pieced together a vague picture of that night's events. Turns out, the woman had mental health issues and was off her meds. She had a big fight with her husband, during which she'd tried to attack him with the knife. Though he'd managed to escape without any serious harm in her distressed state, she'd injured herself, either in a suicide attempt or to frame her husband. The police never talked to us about the details, but that's what we heard from the woman's neighbors. One thing's for damn sure, though. After that night, I never slept in the living room again. In 2010, my wife and I stumbled upon what we thought was our dream home. We were instantly smitten, head over heels for this place. It had everything we were looking for, plus a few extras. That first month, everything was pure bliss. We were painting, decorating, turning it into our little slice of paradise. But then, weird things started to happen. First, it was small things, like things being moved upstairs, put in completely different rooms than where they belonged. I chalked it up to my wife just forgetting to put things back where they belonged. The house also started to creak, pretty loud. It is a fairly new house, so I just figured it was probably settling, as most new houses tend to do. One evening, we were in the kitchen cooking dinner. Our stairs sit right next to the kitchen entrance, so any noises upstairs were clearly audible into the kitchen. I turned off the water in the sink, and as soon as I did, we both heard a cough. A clear as day cough. But it's just the two of us. We had no kids, and no one was visiting. The windows were all shut. The television was not on. This sent the coldest chill down my spine, and I could feel my face draining of color. I glanced at my wife, and she looked like she'd seen a ghost. Our minds raced to the same conclusion. Someone was in our house. I quickly grabbed the nearest, sharpest knife I could find while my wife called the police. I tiptoed to the bottom of the stairs, knife in hand, heart pounding, and heard a loud creak, just like the ones I'd always heard the house make. Honestly, my hands were shaking, and my wife was whispering to the 911 operator, telling them, "We think we may have a robber in our home." The police arrived within minutes. Thankfully, they had been patrolling nearby. The officer walks slowly up the stairs with his gun drawn. He calls out, "This is the police. Is anyone upstairs?" No response. I'm right behind him, walking up the stairs. We look into the first bedroom and closet. It was empty. We checked the half bathroom too, which happens to be empty. The last room is my office, where I have my PC. No one in the room or the closet. I felt the tension ease away, but stupid for making this officer search the house, only to find nothing. We turned to walk out of the room, but then right above us, we heard a loud creak. The officer looks up, spots the attic access in my office closet, and pulls down the ladder. He turns on his flashlight and peeks his head up. To his horror, he finds a man kneeling there in the attic, looking dead at him. Gun drawn, he tells the man to come out and put his hands behind his head. The officer cuffs him up. He didn't say a word the whole time and would not look anyone in the eye. This man, probably in his 40s, was scruffy looking and wore some dirty clothes on. My wife and I were freaking out. I don't think either of us have fully gotten over it. After questioning the man at the police station, we found out he was a homeless man who found refuge in the house while it was still on the market. He said the doors were unlocked, and so he stayed there. Apparently, a realtor must have forgotten to lock the door after showing someone the house. We bought the house, and this stranger had been living right above us for a whole month, and we had no idea. It really freaks me out still just thinking about it. Back when I was just a little kid, I used to go and visit my uncle's lodge during school holidays. It was on this huge property and backed onto the edge of bushland. So my brother and I always had a whole bunch of stuff to do to keep us occupied. This one time, it was just me and my trusty dog, playing near a dry creek bed when out of nowhere, he just took off into the trees. Everyone else had gone into town, and my dad was asleep inside, so I was pretty much alone and decided to go after him. But man, he was quick, and I lost my way in no time. I was starting to get a bit upset because I couldn't find my dog, and I had no idea where I was. So I turned around from where I thought I came from and tried to run back and get my dad so he could help me find him. Next thing I knew, I was tumbling down an embankment. From what I remember, I tripped over a tree root or something and fell down this embankment. I must have hit my head on something because I woke up in the bottom of this small gully, not knowing how I got there. Everything was still a bit blurry. My head was pounding. What actually woke me up was my dog licking my face. He was lying right next to me. How he found me, I don't know. But man, I was really happy to see him. But then, he started barking, but it was a bark I hadn't really heard him do before, and he was still lying flat on his stomach. That's the strange thing I remember about that part. A really strange, lying down, grumble sort of bark. It made me scared a little bit. I turned to see what he was looking at, and there was a guy standing there. I remember he had this really faded cowboy hat thing on that had a big chunk missing on the side. "Hey kid, you had a pretty bad fall, but you should be all right. Let me take you back to your home," he said in this really deep voice. And with that, he scooped me up and we started making our way back through the bush. The two things I remember from that walk were holding his gloves, which I thought was weird because it was the middle of summer and really hot at the time. The other one was my dog walking too close to me. I was pretty much tripping the whole way back because he kept smacking into the side of my leg on the way back. The guy didn't say anything though. In fact, I don't actually remember him saying anything at all apart from the first time he spoke. I don't think we walked for that long because we reached the creek bed really quickly, and I could hear my name being called out by my dad for dinner. I started to run up towards the house and remembered I forgot to thank the guy for getting me here. So I turned to yell, "Thanks, mister." But he was gone. Just like that. So I just figured he was in a hurry or something. A few days later, I was in the supermarket with my mom. It's one of those small country towns that kind of sell everything, and everyone knows everyone. So I'm kind of just wandering around, and there's this photo up on the wall of this guy in a cowboy hat with a big chunk in the side missing. It was the guy who helped me in the woods. I wanted to thank him or something for helping me before, so I asked the cashier there who he was. Turns out he was the original owner of the store around 13 years ago, but died in a freak accident in the woods where my dog and I were. Apparently, back in the day, he used to grow vegetables for the store himself in the middle of these woods. I don't know why. I guess the soil was more fertile or something. He went one day to see how they were growing when a really bad storm started up. Apparently, he was trying to get back, but his dog, who always went with him, fell down a really steep embankment into a small gully, so this guy went after it. While he was down there, a branch broke out of a tree and hit him, breaking his back. They didn't find him till weeks later. His dog was also found with him by his side. Reportedly, it died of starvation. And that's how I found out that my mysterious savior was a ghost from the past, Mr. Rogerson, still watching over those woods. I found myself stranded on a scarcely trafficked road when my car unexpectedly broke down around 4:30 p.m., prompting me to call AAA for roadside assistance. After a lengthy hour-long wait, the AAA technician finally arrived. As the guy approached, he asked what was wrong. I told him my car just wouldn't ignite after pulling over when I saw the engine light come on. So, he checked the battery, went under the front of the car, looked under the hood, checked my battery again, said okay. Try and start it again. I tried, but nothing. It was dead. He said, okay, let me. He tried to get inside the car to check the ignition, but suddenly jumped back, looking very startled. He looked at me, visibly shaken, and asked where the lady sitting in the front passenger seat had gone. I was really confused, because I was by myself and had been the entire time before he arrived. No one else was with me. The technician, now pale and rattled, insisted, "She was right there. She was right there." He swore there was a lady sitting in the passenger seat when he walked to my car. His fear was visible as he stated, "Forget it. I'm not getting in your car," before returning to the hood for another look. He eventually admitted defeat, stating that he was unable to identify the issue and suggested seeking help somewhere else. Curious, I inquired about the woman's appearance. He described her as having long blonde hair, wearing what seemed like in a long pale shirt or dress. The technician's demeanor made it clear that he was genuinely terrified by what he believed he saw, and he was no longer willing to assist with my car. He apologized and offered to call another truck to help me, and promptly left. The second triple. A driver arrived shortly after, successfully jump-starting my car without any complications, and I was able to drive off. Of course, on the way home, I found myself constantly glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see someone sitting in the passenger or back seat, as silly as that sound. The experience left me puzzled and questioning what the first technician might have seen. I kept looking in the rearview mirror to see if anyone was sitting in the back seat as well as the front passenger seat. No idea what that was all about or what he saw. Maybe she was some sort of guardian angel looking out for me in that isolated area. Even though it was daylight, I was all alone in a somewhat less busy road. Maybe someone was looking out for me. Maybe a lost soul wanting to make themselves known. To this day, I have no idea what the guy saw